Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, StayNTouch Product Enhancements, version 5.37, Expanded Events Visibility, Room Type Display Updated for Task Assignment, and more, presented by StayNTouch Implementation Consultant, Britt DeRoy. I'm your host, Erin Fisher, the content writer here at StayNTouch. Today's presentation will cover how you can get the most out of StayNTouch Cloud PMS, version 5.37 product release. In this webinar, we will demonstrate how room type displays above room number for each task in housekeeping task assignment, highlight how events display on the availability screen, in the room diary, in the group room block details tab, and in the allotment details tab, explain how StayNTouch Cloud PMS now charges deposit due upon reservation creation, review daily rates for group rate codes, identify translations master files for German and Dutch languages via StayNTouch Guest Mobility, and discuss Guest Mobility design setup. We will have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer them in the order they are received at the end. And that's all I have right now. Britt, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you.
All right, thank you, Erin. So having a look at our first item for today, moving into my menu on the left-hand side, moving into housekeeping and then task management, because we'll now find that whenever I click on Manage Worksheets, the room type is now displayed above the room number. So if I would just select the active users, we'll find that the room type is now displayed in the task assignment. So when we would click on the print toggle here on the right-hand side and click on print worksheets, we'll also find that the view has changed a bit, showing the room number and then the room type below the room number. Moving on to the next item, events are now shown in your availability screen. Moving back into our dashboard, when I open up my availability screen here on the right-hand side, I'll find any events that have been created in the top bar here, identified with a 1, for example, for one event. I know that there's an event in the system on the 11th of June. I'm just switching to that date. And here I'll find that one. And when I click on the date, I'll find a description of the event. Events are also now displayed in the room diary. When I move into our menu, front desk, and then room diary, we'll find the event shown here as well. So when I would switch to the date of the event, so let's say to the 9th, we'll find the 11th of June. And again, we'll find that one. And when we click on the date, we'll find the description of the event. When we would switch to daily diary by switching to D here and switching to the date of the event, so the 11th, we'll find that one event displayed here as well. By clicking on the event, I'll find a description of the event. Whenever I'm creating a group reservation at the time of an event, I'll also find a description of the event. So moving into our groups, manage group, looking for a group taking place at the time of the event. Moving into room blocking details, and you'll find that on the 11th of June, we'll find that one, and when we click on the date, we'll find a description of the event. The same goes for our allotments. Moving into our menu, manage allotments. Having a look at this StayNTouch allotment here. Moving into allotment details, and then moving into the date of the event. when I click on the date, I'll find a description of the event again, highlighted with the one here. Moving on to our next item is a PSD2 requirement that we'd like to adhere to for our European market, allowing to take an instant payment when this deposit rule is attached to that rate. So when I move into settings, I'm just going to show you how that will be set up. Moving into rates, rules and restrictions, this is where we'll be able to set up those deposit requests. Clicking on add new rule, I'll find that when I would like to set up the post type, so when the deposit rule would need to kick in, when I would select add booking, a new toggle would appear, which is set here, instant payment, allowing me to, whenever this rule is attached to a reservation, having the system take an instant payment. So upon reservation creation, the PMS will check if a deposit is due, and if a credit card is attached to the reservation, the PMS will charge that card. All charges that are issued on the card will be recorded in the activity log of the Stay card as per usual. All authorizations can be found in your menu, Financials, CC Transactions, and we'll find under the authorization segment all approved, declined, or reversed authorizations. Moving on to our next item is daily rates for group rate codes. So when we would move back into our groups, manage group, and we would select, let's say, our test group here, we have updated our outgoing group messages to CRS vendors with whom we have group support. These are Synexis, TravelClick, SHR, and Windsurfer. When using a rate code as a part of a group block, as opposed to the custom rate option, so whenever you create a group reservation, you would need to attach a group rate as shown here. We would now send the rate configured or managed for each date, so not just the first night's rate. There are no changes that you have to actually apply at the property level, and we would not need to actually change anything to the setup from our side, so it has been activated. So whenever we would move into our rate manager and have a look at that group rate, we'll find that the rates are now sent not only as a first night's value, but as shown here in your rate manager, they might fluctuate among the days that you have set up the rate for. Moving on to our next item, we have introduced translations for our kiosk in German and Dutch. So hotels using Dutch or German can now add an optional language and do not need to manually enter the translations. Moving on to our last item of today, guest mobility design setup. To be found under your menu, settings and settings again. We'll find this new setup under Zest, guest mobility design, where we'll be able to customize color setup and text for our pre-check-in or mobility product. I'm just going to pull up the article that we had created so you will see which segment impacts what item of the guest mobility journey. When we scroll down, we'll find once the functionality has been activated, you'll be able to scroll through color setup and text setup. The icon color will influence the late checkout options, so these late checkout toggles here. Background color will influence the background of our checkout screen. Template button background would influence our toggle that will allow guests to continue their checkout journey. Header background would influence the header of which that is shown during the checkout flow. Calendar header would show a color in the actual departure date grid. Calendar main background would influence the entire background of the calendar. And then the cell background would influence the actual days of the month. Light bottom background for our checkout color setup would influence the actual toggle of the checkout now or checkout later toggle. If you'd like to change between dark and lighter colors, you'll be able to differentiate here to these late checkout toggles. Then our late checkout options can be set up with different colors. So checkout time 1, 2, and 3 could have different colors as per the setup here. And the template, the logo that you will pull for these templates will actually be the logo that you are going to set up from hotel and staff, hotel details, and then hotel logo for templates. Additionally, you'll be able to change the font, and you'll be able to choose between these template fonts, and you'll be able to differentiate between the colors of these fonts. If you'd like to actually change the wording of the guest mobility flow, you'll be able to move into settings, Zest, translations, and then categorized view. When I move into our demo property under Zest, translations, and then categorized view, you'll find all of the different steps of the check-in flow and the wording, which you'll then be able to change. And that was our webinar of today.
All right. Thanks, Britt, for that insightful presentation. I'd now like to turn over the floor for some questions. Remember, you can submit questions through the question box in the middle of the control panel. So I'll give everyone a few seconds to enter those. All right, since I don't see any questions, I'd like to take to the floor to offer some final thoughts. All right, so today we demonstrated how room type displays above room number for each task in housekeeping task assignment, highlighted how events display on the availability screen, in the room diary, in the group room block details tab, and in the allotment details tab. We also explained how StayNTouch Cloud PMS now charges deposit due upon reservation creation, reviewed daily rates for group rate codes, identified translations master files for German and Dutch languages via StayNTouch Guest Mobility, and discussed guest mobility design setup. With that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you all for coming, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me at erin.fisher@stayintouch.com. Thanks again.